We're live.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hamish and Brandon show. My name is Brandon, and I'm speaking to you from the always warm and sunny Montreal, Quebec. And I'm joined by my buddy Hamish, who's speaking to you from the balmy and evergreen Chilliwack, British Columbia.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. This is episode 2. Now, Hamish, before we begin, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too.
It's been a while since we've officially chatted in this way. How were your holidays?
My holidays were good. Yeah, my holidays were good. We had a good time. My kids are old enough to really enjoy Christmas, I think, because I've got a 2-year-old and a almost 4-year-old. So yeah, that was really fun. They had a good time, and my brother Derek, who lives not far away, came and stayed with us. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a good time. Pretty relaxed. We didn't do anything too crazy. We just kind of stayed at home, had some friends over, had some fun. But yeah, how about you?
Well, hang on a second. Now that your kids are starting to be old enough, are you having like family traditions, or do you want to start a tradition of some sort?
Yeah, that's a good question. My wife and I have talked about that a little bit. I don't know. Like we have, I guess it's hard for me to call them traditions because I just grew up doing these things. So maybe they just feel normal to me. But like we have, on Christmas morning, we have like a special breakfast. It's usually like pancakes and eggs and bacon and all the fixings. So we do that. We have the kids' stockings, which we'll open them first. It's like eat breakfast, open stockings, and then it's gifts. I don't know. I don't know if you call that a tradition. It's just kind of the order of things that we do them in. So yeah,
I'd say that counts.
But we haven't really done anything. We did go caroling with some friends, which was really nice. But that isn't necessarily a tradition. Although I like it a lot, so maybe we'll do that next year again. Yeah. How was your holidays?
Pretty good. I mean, just quiet family time, which is, I think, the way it's supposed to be. We do have a tradition. I don't know if it's sustainable or if we're going to keep doing it, or it's just what we've been doing for a while now. Like on Christmas Eve, we would have the missionaries over for supper, and it would always be like either Chinese takeout or Indian takeout or something like that.
Nice.
I don't know where I got the idea, but the whole concept of the Indian and Chinese restaurants are the only ones open that day, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, 100%. Well, that's funny. We actually, I think it was, what holiday was it? It may have actually been like not this Christmas, but last. I can't remember, but we were like, oh, we want to have a nice dinner, and the place we were going to go was like closed or something happened. Something fell through. Anyway, we ended up at like a local Indian place. Like that was like this Indian restaurant. And at the time, it had only been open for like a few months, I think, or 6 months. And we're like, well, it's literally the only place open like within like a 20-minute radius of driving. So we went ahead and went there, and it was really good. We've been back. It was nice. So
nice. Well, this year was a little special because we had a member of our branch who is from India. He's Indian, and he actually made the food. And so we had like a big. It was Monday nights. We had a big FHE with him, his roommate, and the missionaries over. So we had like our tiny living room was jam packed, and we had a table and all this delicious food out. It was pretty awesome.
Nice.
And then afterwards, kind of as like a gift, is we went to Quebec City. Mm-hmm. We spent a couple of days there, just sightseeing, walking through Quebec City is quite magical during the winter. That's probably the only place where a whole bunch of tourists actually adds to the magic and the effect of it. Like, if you go to New York City and you see tourists everywhere, it's just like you're in the way. Like you're like, come on, I want to just enjoy the thing. But
yeah, you still kind of feel crowded. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's all crowded and yeah.
Yeah.
But in Quebec City, it's like this tiny little village with the cobblestone roads and the snow coming down and all these little shops with the lights and all the people in their snowsuits and stuff. Like that actually increases or improves the experience.
That's nice.
Anyways,
It's like more charming, right? Like with all the people there.
yeah. So those are my holidays, and we had a
Nice.
good time.
That's
But
awesome.
now it's almost the end of January, huh?
Yeah. I know. I can't believe
Yeah,
that. Holy cow. How are we already like a month into the new year? It's just
exactly. It's
like
nuts.
only 11 more after that, and now we're in 2020. Like, what's happening?
That's
Yeah,
the future. It's officially the future, right?
the future. Yeah, that's
2020.
when we hit the future. The
Yeah.
future is 2020. That sounds really cool. But yeah, it's been a good year so far. It started off kind of interesting. My immediate manager at work was let go, and
Oh,
not on like terrible terms. It just things just weren't working out
okay.
as well as I guess they wanted things to. But yeah, so that was interesting. Kind of a sudden jolt for the team there, but
Yeah.
we have someone who stepped in as kind of interim manager, so that's been going great. It's someone actually who was my manager before, so that's I mean, it's we have a good relationship, so that's been really nice. But yeah, kind of just a big surprise there, and but yeah, we came out of the gate swinging though. We're working hard trying to ship features and at my job, so we're staying busy. But
Nice.
yeah, yeah. I got a text from someone the other day who was like, actually, it wasn't a text; it was a video. But they were like, "Look what I'm doing!" They're like showing like the Buffer app on their screen and like sharing how they're using it at work. And I was like, "That's so cool!" It's funny because we have
Nice.
lots of customers, but like I don't really know many of our customers. So it's always fun when someone I actually know uses a product that I work on every day. And I was like, "Well, let me know if you see any bugs."
Yeah,
I know there's a few.
I work in like sort of the fintech area, like blockchain for financial people. So I'm unlikely to get that kind of experience.
Yeah, it's probably even less likely, I suppose, for your use case, right? Like, yeah, yeah, it's fun. It's kind of fun. I think I also remember like once or twice meeting people at like, or yeah, like one of the times someone at our house was like, "Oh, I use Buffer. I love Buffer," and it's like this, like, "Oh, that's great!" Like this proud feeling, like I work on that product, and that was actually shortly after I joined. So I was like, "That's awesome." But I don't actually work on anything you're talking about yet. So I just started. I don't even know what that is. But I think they'd actually Buffer just chosen to like sunset this feature that was just not worth the effort to keep working on. And she was like, "I love this feature," or something like that. Or they were going to sunset it, and like it ended up getting removed later on. But it was like, sorry, you're gonna lose that feature. But that's what happens in product work, though. It's like you're always trying to decide like what features matter. You can only invest so much in like certain areas, and you can't just keep building more and more features because eventually you can't maintain them all. So you have to kind of like find which ones make the most sense. And yeah, so sometimes things get
like
cut
the
like
Google
that.
Hangouts on Air, apparently.
Yeah, exactly, right? And Google, oh my gosh, I feel like Google just like wakes up and decides to like axe a product. But actually, speaking of which, did you hear about I read some news the other day that Google has proposed these changes to their web extension framework. And I don't know a lot about this, but it's threatening to like break the functionality of a lot of ad blockers. So like uBlock Origin's a big one, AdBlock
Ooh.
Plus, and a lot of them use, I don't know what it is, these certain APIs in the web extensions API. And I guess web extensions is supposed to be kind of cross browser, so like other browsers kind of all use a similar standard, but Google's kind of surprised everyone with like a proposal, but almost like we're going to do this kind of thing, and it'll
Right.
a lot of outcry from that just because
Interesting. I've not heard about this.
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, I just thought of that when I thought of whatever else we were talking about there. That just made me think of that. But yeah, I don't know much about it. It was interesting to me. Like we do use web extensions at Buffer for our own extension, although it's a very simple extension. Like it just renders like an iframe on the page, so you can like quickly add a post to your
Go
Buffer
around
queue.
it.
Yeah. So I don't think we'll be affected by that. But some of the deeper extensions that try and like affect or modify network requests or watch that kind of stuff is, yeah. There's some alternative that Google's suggesting, but it sounds like it's much more limited. So,
Well, as far as ad blocking goes, yeah, I'm thinking of like, because normal banner ads are usually pretty easy to work around. Sometimes you can just add a big text file to your host file.
Oh, right, yeah.
You're familiar with that, and it just automatically redirects. If it says ad.com or whatever in the name, it just redirects
Yeah.
it back to your local host, and so it just blocks the request essentially.
Yeah.
YouTube ads are probably going to be not so easy. I'm guessing maybe this is one of the reasons they're doing this, is to stop the whole YouTube ad blocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's a significant portion of their revenue, right?
I know that, like, I use ad block on a lot of my computers, and if I'm on my phone, for example, and I play a YouTube video and suddenly there's an ad, I'm like,
Yeah,
what's
it's
this?
a surprise. Like,
yeah, I was like, and I'll be honest, like, I do feel a little bad because I know there's some people I watch on YouTube, and I'm actually not really doing them any favors by, not seeing the ads in their videos. So I probably should just enable it on YouTube. But it's one of those things, like, if my kids are watching videos on YouTube, like, I like the fact that they don't randomly see an ad. Like, and I don't know what the content of these ads are going to be. Like, sure, my kids might be watching a kid's video, but I don't really trust YouTube to play ads that I think are appropriate for my kids. So, yeah.
I once saw an ad on YouTube, and I kid you not, the ad was an hour long.
Oh my gosh!
It
Wow.
was like a full interview, and I think it was like some pastor interviewing, like Bible bashing some other pastor or something like this.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
fortunately, it's a skippable video. I don't think YouTube would allow an hour-long non-skippable video
Oh my
ad.
gosh! Yeah.
But I was just so surprised. I'm like, is that even possible? Like, how much money are you paying to put on this hour-long ad in front of people's videos? But apparently there's no upper limit.
Apparently not. I guess you can just use any video. I mean, there's probably optimal times. Like, I can't remember the last time I actually watched an ad. I think I have before, though. I'll be like, oh, okay, this is like a video game or something that I'm semi interested in, or like I might
actively watch like without skipping it or anything.
Yeah. I think I've done that a couple of times, but usually it's like, how fast can I skip this? Okay, I'm skipping this. Like, I just want to get to the video I was going to watch. So,
have you heard of the Brave browser?
Yeah, I have. I think I used it on my phone. I was using it for a while because on my phone, it's not easy to like block ads with Chrome on my phone. There's no extension system that I know of, at least. So when I heard about Brave, I was like, oh, sweet, this thing basically blocks ads out of the box. And so I started using it.
They have, I mean, one of the, like you said, out of the box, they block ads, but they also have like some sort of alternative thing in place, or they want to have it in place, but it isn't yet. Some sort of like blockchain token for, like, they call it the basic attention token.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think I heard about this.
I think what happens is they replace the ads with their own ads. And then the more you look at their ads, you accumulate points or tokens or whatever, and you can use these tokens to pay the content creators, like blog authors and video creators. I'm not exactly sure that's how it works, but I mean, it's interesting because for sure, I mean, the entire internet in the last few, couple decades, or decade, I suppose, has been ads based, right? I mean, the whole thing revolves around ads, and with the ease of ad blockers, that model is kind of crumbling, right? So
it's at risk if they don't.
At risk. Yeah, let's say at risk. I mean, so you got to ask yourself, like, like what alternative system can we have in place? You've heard of Patreon, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's I mean, that's an alternative.
That's a big one
to it. Like, people voluntarily, putting money in, and they select the creators that they like and click, and then it goes off either every month or every video.
Yeah.
Some of them popular YouTubers, like sometimes some of them are the amount that they get per video is visible, and it's crazy. It's like $20,000 per month or per video.
Wow. Yeah.
insane if you're popular, right?
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, the fact that you can like crowdsource your funding is so cool. That we live in a world where you can do that, you know? Yeah, that's awesome.
And you know what? People, should, get used to the idea of paying for the content that they consume, right?
Yeah.
We've been for so long in a system where people think it's free, but actually it's so funded by the ads that we don't even know like how much the actual cost of watching ads, reading ads, seeing ads.
Yeah.
It takes its toll, and it has a cost. And if we're willing to pay that, then sure, let's get it for free. And then of course there's the social media platforms which do the opposite. They sell your data to advertisers.
Yeah.
That's a whole can of worms in of itself.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, you can trade different things, right? Trade your
it's all
privacy,
right?
Yeah.
Privacy,
so interesting.
The psychological cost of attention and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or actual money, like, so make your choice.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I was going to bring up today, it's kind of a random turn from where we are right now, but I thought it'd be fun because this is kind of a techie oriented podcast / video /
Let's hear this idea.
So I think I shared this with you before, and it might probably one of our calls that we didn't have recorded, but I built this tool a couple of years ago for my ward in our church to send out text messages so that the brethren could report back if they had visited, done their home teaching, if they visited the families they were assigned to. It would it was fairly manual. I'd have to go in and click the button and send all these requests. But once that started,
telling me about that.
Yeah, so once that started, they could text back and have a conversation to some degree with this bot that would record. I called the bot Omni, just to name it after one of the books in the Book of Mormon,
Nice.
Which is a book of very little. Well, I shouldn't say very little consequence, but not a very big book. But I just like the name. It sounds cool.
And it's Latin for all, right? So make sure you get 100%.
Exactly. It felt like it met the it just felt right. Of course, with the announcement that we were moving away from home teaching and to ministering and no longer tracking visits, that tool in one swoop became pretty much useless because we don't need to track those things anymore.
Are you comparing the church to Google?
Yeah, right. They're like, we don't need this anymore. Yeah. No, they didn't know about my software, so that's fine. So I'm not in the Elders Quorum anymore. I was then, but I'm not now. I'm the ward clerk. But the Elders Quorum president, who was the president at the time, came to me and said, "Hey, so can we get Omni working again?" And I was like, "What for?" He's like, "Well, I was just thinking reminders about the lesson to start." He's like, maybe reminders about some of our upcoming events, and which sounds kind of fun. So I don't know. I was going to bring it up because I don't really know if it's interesting to you at all, but it's kind of a fun project. So basically, what I'm thinking is, I don't really need it. All the code I wrote before to collect these reports is not really useful anymore, especially if it's just going to be a notification bot. So I was trying to think, what is a way that I can build this out? And actually, right before our chat, he sent me another text. He's like, when could you realistically have Omni online again doing this?
He really wants this, huh?
He does. Yeah, he does. So, and I don't want to commit to anything. At least not now. I need to think about how I'm going to build this and how much of the old code I want to reuse. And because there's just so much there. What I built before was there's just so much code to receive these messages and process them and then try and maintain the context of okay, at what stage of the report is this user in? Are they, there was so much, and I don't need any of that if all I'm doing is sending out a reminder about the lesson, right? So, but some of the fun parts of what I built were I built a tool that would scrape all the data from LDS.org, the membership data. And that was cool. So it could so then it used that data to send the text messages. So then it would like, yeah. And there's actually like the service I use was called Twilio, and Twilio supports, they have this API where you can like, yeah, they're pretty popular. I think they're one of the leaders in like the SMS automation, and they do other things too in the same space, like actual phone calls. I think you can have them call people with like a robotic voice if you want. But basically, they had an API where you could even like determine if a number was a cell phone or not, which was pretty cool.
I could have used that a couple times because I hate it when I text a number and it turns out it's a home number, and then I get an automated response saying like
your text has been converted, or your voice is converted to a text. You're like, dang it. Yeah, and it's so funny. So that service they have as well. They're not free. None of these services are free, but especially the detecting whether it's a mobile number for some reason was quite expensive. I mean, compared to like sending a text, which was quite, a very small fraction of a cent, whereas like I think checking a number was actually like a cent or more than a cent per check.
So you do it once and then never again.
Yeah, you cache it and don't check it again, which of course the first few versions of my program forgot to do, so I had to pay like a couple dollars to get it right and finally lock it in. And yeah, it was fun times. But anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but
okay, so hang on a sec. So at this point, it's like you said, it's a notifications thing, right? You just say, so this week we're studying John chapter 1, and this week we have Priest and Relief Society, not Sunday school.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Exactly.
Stay good, right? Like, so correct me if I'm wrong. Wouldn't a service like Twilio have a simple interface for that already?
Well, so that's a great point. So, and that's what I want to try and avoid as much as possible, like over-engineering it or trying to build something like too big, because I know that'll make it more difficult to ship something. So like the original bot did have a lot of things to do, and so I wrote it like a Dockerized app that I could deploy and like Docker Compose and all these things, and it worked, but it's like it was a lot. And of course I had like the layer that I had to run separately that would like do the scraping, which was like a Puppeteer, like automated Chrome browser that would log in as my account and scrape the data from the page. It would actually log in as my account on LDS.org and then make an AJAX request. It would make an AJAX request in my account, and I had to do that because you can't just make that request outside of that context because it doesn't have like the session cookie. So it's like so funny. So as you probably know, the church does not have an open API, so you have to kind of.
Or it might have an export to CSV option. I'm not sure if that's recent or not.
That's what I was thinking. So for this thing, I thought, you know what? I don't need to have like a fancy synchronization. I just need a way. If I can get the names and numbers exported, and I know, like you said, I'm pretty sure you can. Or even if it's like a PDF, I can parse that. Just something I can parse. And then, so Twilio, I'm just going to pull it up on their website right now because I'm wondering if they have like, I know that they added something recently that was like cloud functions. Everyone's doing this now. Like, don't, serverless. Don't worry about your servers. Like, just deploy.
You just give it some code, and they'll process it when a request comes in.
Exactly. So they during the process of me building this last bot, at some point they announced that feature and said, "Oh, this is available now." I mean, I had already written most of my code, so that wasn't useful for me at the time. But I'm just wondering if now maybe I can use that feature to get most of this functionality without having to build any infrastructure around it, Just logging into my account now to see if I can. And see, I still have $16 of credit in my account. That's not used.
All I see for export options is just a print PDF, but you can choose what information goes onto it.
Okay.
So that's pretty nice.
Honestly, even if I just manually, I can still write a script to do it, but I'm okay with that being manual, like just parsing it out.
No, because PDF, you can easily read PDFs. With a script.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Okay, and so once you get the names and contact info, you want to basically send out a bunch of texts, right?
Yeah, I need to send the text, and I need to know what the lesson is going to be. So my thought on that one is like,
so you want to automate that as well? Okay.
I think so. I mean, I'm also bouncing ideas off you. Like, okay, so let's frame this in the context of like, it's something that I don't have a lot of time to work on. So I do need to think of ways of making this as simple as possible. And I also don't mind like delegating work to the presidency of the Elders Forum to say, okay, well, hey, this is here, but you have to go and like trigger it or enter a message that it sends or something. So that might be a good first version, you know?
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned is literally one script to parse the PDF, and that's it. and
yeah.
or format the data nicely so that it can go into the Twilio API, basically.
Right.
Maybe when you can that service receive text messages?
Yes, so it can receive them. And the way that works is you set up a webhook. So you say, when a text message comes into my number, you like register a number with them, send the contents of that message to this endpoint, and you can do anything you want with that endpoint. And if you return a certain XML response from that endpoint, they'll send that back as a text to the user.
Okay, so I think that's what we want. I think what you want is you have the option to update the contact list using a PDF, and it'll parse the PDF. And whenever the president sends a text message to that number, it forwards that text message to all the numbers on the list.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah. That'd be really easy because then he doesn't have to like get on a computer or a website. He just texts a number.
Make it super easy.
Yeah.
You could also add, if you're feeling adventurous, you can add later another feature where every week it sends one text message to the president saying, this is what the lesson is, this is what Sunday's class will be, and it could even send like a template of a message. So like, hello, it will be this lesson, and we will have this class on Sunday, and then he has the option to add or modify to that message, and he sends it right back, and it goes to everyone on the list.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think so this would be a 3-phase operation. Phase 1 is the PDF parser, unless there's another export option which I am not seeing. You said you're the word clerk, right?
I do have a lot of access. Maybe I have more access.
Yeah, maybe you have access to something that I cannot see, or that others cannot see.
I was gonna,
I could have sworn there was a CSV export of some sort.
Yeah, I would think that there is too, honestly. Like, I do see print. Yeah. The thing is, though, like you can almost do it yourself, because if you go to the member list page, at least what I see, it's just a big table. And if you copy a table into like Google Sheets, it'll just put them in the cells. And there you go. You basically have exported it, right? Like,
So actually, so phase 1 is done.
Yeah, like that's easy to do. And I only need to update that every once in a while if someone's like name or email changes or get a new member in. So that's not a big deal. So that's easy to get. We get the data into a CSV file, which I can then parse into a program. And then I guess I need to figure out how much of this, where I need to put this. So I found one of the things I didn't like about the last time I built this was I did it entirely on my own, like virtual private server, which was annoying because it's like you have to configure all the things, and you have like getting Docker working. Like I spent so much time just trying to get the infrastructure working. And a lot of the things I've seen lately are like, just like, again, like going back to serverless, I can see the benefit of that, because just not having to think about infrastructure is really, really helpful when you're developing. So one tool that I used the other day for, I sent it to you, my like Book of Mormon reading.
I saw that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I use now.sh or whatever you say it.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, and they're great. So like, what's cool about them is like you can they try and make it as simple as possible, like as like little thinking as possible. If you run the now command in a folder with just an HTML file, it'll just upload that as a static page. You get a custom URL. It's done. It's super fast. If you upload like a JavaScript file, I think it may also assume that that's like a dynamic endpoint, and that now that JavaScript file can be like, it's almost like a route handler, so it'll return like dynamic content if you want to do that.
Right.
And then anything beyond that, I think there's like a small configuration file where you say like, this PHP file is PHP, or this Ruby file is Ruby. And you can actually like have like different languages in the same repository of code, and you run the now command and it'll like deploy them all to like the right servers, and they'll just work. It's really, really cool. Like, so I mean, for my Book of Mormon thing, it was really straightforward. I just had to like, I had a database of the Book of Mormon, which I also scraped from LDS.org, because you can get open source ones, but they don't have the annotations and footnotes because those are technically copyrighted. So I just made a copy myself. But anyway, I'm not publicly sharing that per se. I guess it's publicly accessible. But anyway, we won't put the URL here so that no one knows.
Okay.
Because it is kind of skirting the legal line, but I did want to have that there. So anyway, I had that content in a file that was just like it was like I used like this Node memory file system or memory database system called Loki, which is just like I don't know. It's, if you Google Node local database or what did I Google? I don't remember. That's what came up. So I was like, okay, I'll use this. But it's called Loki.js.
As in the brother of Thor, or as in
correct
down low?
Yeah. No, Loki is in the brother of Thor. Yeah, the mischievous one.
Okay.
But anyway, so it was really cool because I was able to say like, okay, like this endpoint just loads my app. This endpoint is the one that like has the, and it was actually just like almost like writing an Express app in Node, but you didn't have to have all the Express stuff. It just created a file that exported a request response function, and that just does what it needs to do. So anyway, that model is really cool. So I'm thinking like for this version of Omni, I don't really want to use my virtual private server. I'd rather not have to think about the server. I just want to like write the code. So maybe I'll use Now.
How much does that cost?
So Now is free up to a certain amount of usage, which is what's really cool about it. So if you go to their site,
up to there's a request limit, basically.
Yes, I think there's a limit, and it's a bandwidth limit. So I think you get 100 gigabytes a month of bandwidth.
It's pretty decent for like your Book of Mormon thing. You'll never hit that.
No, exactly. That's totally private. 1,000 builds, and I don't exactly know what defines a build, but the build step of your site. So I'm assuming if I had like several build steps, that could rack up
every
a lot.
time you push it, I guess.
Yeah, one build request or one request is equivalent to one invocation. Yeah, 1,000 invocations a day. I mean, it's really quite high for the free plan. There's a maximum file size that's like 100 megs per file, but even that, like, I'm not going to use bigger files than that.
That's reasonable, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think one thing that does happen with the free servers is that they'll go into like a stasis or like a sleep mode. So if I don't use my app for a while, so if I try and load it right now, actually, I'm gonna type it in. The request is loading. It's still, it's actually quite fast. Sometimes it takes like sometimes the request will actually time out. It won't load, and then you have to reload because the server was like being booted up or like like a cold start, which wouldn't happen if you were paying for the server because they just keep it on all the time. But I have noticed
it's a server, or is it like loading your code into an already on server and just running it from there?
I don't know. That's a great question. All I know is that behind the scenes they deprioritize your code. So obviously to make room for like paying customers. So basically, like if there's not enough usage on my app, it'll go into like sleep mode. But like I just loaded it for the first time, and I know I'm the only one who does that. So it did load like within 3 or 4 seconds. So it was pretty quick, but it's awesome. I mean, I love their service. It's so cool. The best part, like I said, is that you just don't have to think about it, And when you're starting out with something like a side project or something like hobby style, that's the best part. There's also something called Serverless. I think they actually own the serverless.com domain.
Serverless.com, you said?
Yeah. If you go to that, I don't really know what this is yet. Someone at my company shared it, And it looks to me like it's similar to now, except it's more platform agnostic. So you can like be on AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform. It has like, or even your own like Kubernetes cluster, I guess. But regardless of what the actual server is, the tool, the serverless tool is the same, and it'll like deploy your code to that. So that's cool. So if you already have AWS, for example, and you want to kind of get the benefits of like easily deploying things, I think that the idea with serverless is that you would just like give it your like API keys, and then now there you go, you've got your own like, you know, quick way to deploy stuff. So
this is cool.
Yeah, have not tried it, can't speak for it, but it feels to me like a bit more of like a, I'd rather be a little closer to the metal, like, or own some more of my stuff, in the sense that like AWS, of course, is a bit more hands-on, right? Versus like now where you don't have to worry about the server at all. So yeah.
Yeah, I read about the serverless concept, you know, a couple years ago, and I was very interested, but I never had the chance to get into it or look at it more closely.
It's really great. Yeah, I have like, and I realized too, like I have this on my server right now, my own virtual server. It's just like I worked on this like free WordPress, not free, but like a paid WordPress theme with a friend a couple of years ago, and so I set up the code on there, and so I have all this configuration on there to like, you know, if the host name, I have like Nginx configured to like send the request to this like app on there and all this stuff. So that I go and add like another, anytime I want to add something new, now I have to like say, okay, well, how do I access it? Do I need a domain name now? Okay, I have a domain name, then I need to like set up the reverse proxy. It's just like a huge bunch of work that I don't want to do, you know? And I keep saying I should probably just stop paying for my server, because it's like, it's costing more money than it makes me. Like I made money off this theme, but it's like not as much money as I paid for the hosting. So it's like, and what am I getting out of this hosting? Like and to be fair, I hosted the old Omni, like the old bot on there as well, but you know, that's not even used anymore. So it's almost like a part of me is like, oh, I'm a hacker, so I have to own a server. Like, you know, it's like a badge of.
I mean, all you need for hacker status, all you need is like a Raspberry Pi,
yeah,
and or like an account with DigitalOcean where you can just spin up a droplet, use it for whatever you need, and then kill it afterwards, right?
Yeah, which is true. Actually, I should just, well, and again, I don't shut it down because that theme is still for sale technically. But if it wasn't for that, I could probably just shut down the droplets I have because they're not being used. And come to think of it, I should shut down the one for the Omnibot because I feel like I haven't shut that down. It cost me a couple of bucks a month. But yeah, so anyway, I think coming back to this one though, like, yeah, the minimal thing feels like in a fairly manual way, I'll get the data of all the emails, or sorry, all the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Then I can stop the server. I just realized this. I'm like, I'm gonna stop paying for the server right now. Stop server.
And you can't just stop the server. You have to delete the server because I think if it still exists, you still pay for it in some way or something like that.
I'm wondering. Yeah, I'm gonna stop it and see if the charges go down. It says $4 right now, so we'll see if it's not charging me anymore. We'll see. Yeah, you might be right. It might just be that yeah. It's kind of fun having servers. Like I like it. You know, like
I love just like it's my own little network, my own little kingdom, right? It's just all my little towns and villages that I am in charge of.
Yeah, exactly. It's just fun. You set up your SSH keys. I set up my one server that I have. I'll probably just always keep that one because it costs me like, you know, $5 a month, and it's just nice to have. But when I SSH into it, it shows me like this cool banner and like a rainbow font, and like it's like welcome to your machine. You know, it's like this machine that belongs to me that I could, in theory, and probably should do more with, like store stuff on or something. But anyway, but yeah. So I think that this should, in theory, not be very hard. So the MVP, I feel like, is this: get the names and numbers, put them into a file, write a script that, and ideally a script that's hosted either on the Twilio itself or on some other quick, easy to deploy platform, and that script will act as like a receive hook for like a text that comes in.
Yeah.
And so let's say I or someone else texts that with like maybe there's a special command prefix or something like that to make sure it works right. But essentially it'll trigger a broadcast. That'll receive the text, and then it'll go and use the same API to send a text to everyone on the list, letting them know about the lesson, for example. So that could be like a very easy version. It's basically just like a forwarder. So it just forwards text to a whole group of people. And then what would make that easier is like if, for example, they've added the lesson to the calendar, and the church calendars can be added to Google Calendar, which means that they potentially could be accessible at like a certain endpoint or a URL.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'm with you so far.
Yeah. So in theory, I could fetch that URL. I mean, the tricky part about that is it might be behind you have to be logged in for that to work. Anytime you need data behind like a logged in is, but actually, no, I don't think that's true because Google fetches it into its own calendar and doesn't need authentication. So no, that should work.
Yeah, I think what happens is
public.
There's two versions. There's the live updates where it constantly checks, you know, is there an event or whatever, and then there's the other option, which is you export all the events that are currently on the calendar in bulk, and you just load it all in one shot. Yes. So I don't know which option is available or better, but
if they have the lessons planned out for the year, and then those aren't going to change.
It sounds like, and it's customized for your stake and your award, so sounds like that's the way to go.
Yeah, but sorry, what sounds like the way to go?
To export like one giant. I don't know what the format is, .cal or something like.
Yeah.
XCal or iCal or I don't know. And it contains all the events for the year, and then you just you parse that in another script. I believe in the Unix philosophy, right? You have several little scripts that each do one task and one task really well, and then you combine them in a harmonious way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So if you go to lds.org and say calendar sync, they give you a special URL you can use to, that you can use to put into your Google Calendar. So if I paste that into my own browser, it returns an ICS file, which I'm going to download and inspect and see what it's in it. I'm not sure what program it's going to open with. Oh, it's actually trying to open it with the calendar app on Mac.
With your calendar app, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. With like Sublime or something. I love this kind of stuff. As a total like random aside, how was I doing this? I'm trying to remember now. Oh yeah, so our ward does a food drive every year, which I think a lot of wards across Canada do, maybe even across the continent. But and I was responsible for organizing some of that, and I wanted to know like how many houses would be in a given area of the city, right? So I could estimate the number of bags someone would need or the number of cards they would need to hand out. And we've tried to get people to count in the past, and it's just really hard because it always feels like you're pulling teeth to get the data, and people forget or it gets lost track of. A paper's lost, it's not recorded. And so we don't always really know how many houses are on a given route. So, of course, my brain's like, couldn't I pull this data from like Google Maps? So Google Maps doesn't provide that data that I could tell. So that's the tricky part. They do render on their map like individual houses in a lot of cases, but it's not like they expose that data accessibly. So that was kind of crossed off. What's that?
Doesn't the city government, the municipal thing, have some sort of open data policy?
Yeah, exactly. So I went down this rabbit hole a little bit. This was really fun because I found out, even though I live in like kind of a podunk town, Chilliwack, I went to their website and started digging into like the civic, city planning stuff and like just like the open data that they had. There's a whole bunch of open data, which is really interesting, first of all. But then I found property listings, and it opened up in this like kind of like what felt like Google Maps. It wasn't, but it was like a Google Maps type interface with all the houses on it. And you can click on individual properties to see like their tax level and their build date and like all this metadata about them. Yeah, and I realized under the hood, because I could tell by the URL, so I of course pull out Inspector and start looking at the requests. I'm seeing some names and some themes, which I then Google and realize that this is part of a like corporate suite of like GIS, whatever that means, global information. I don't know, it's some like mapping software that you can license out as a town or a business or a company to use in your software. So maybe I'm sure that
geographic information systems, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, so it's this GIS system, and I'm sure it has lots of different industrial and commercial uses. And so I could see they were making these queries to this server, and they were doing these queries in a very formatted kind of way. Like, I'm like, get me the data about houses in like these coordinates. And I was like, perfect. And I think you could even, and there was a tool where you could even draw like a polygon, and get data inside the polygon. And I was like copying these requests and pasting them into a notes doc and stuff. I didn't get farther than that, but my theory was like, and this is way over engineering it, but so then we have these maps that someone made for our routes where they just drew polygons in Google's like create your own map tool, which I don't know if you've seen that before, right? Yeah, so I was like, if I can extract the geo positions of each of the polygon points, send them to this API, which is public, by the way, it's our city's public API, that could in theory get me back a list of properties in that area, and so I can count them and therefore get the number. It's like as simple as that. So there was some reason, there was a caveat that I can't remember now. I think it had something to do with like, it wasn't as simple as like, I think maybe it wasn't polygons, it was only squares. And I was like, okay, so I'd have to write a function to like convert a polygon into a series of squares, like there's definitely a mathematical name for that, like basically like I need a function that gives me an approximation of a complex shape, but in squares, right? So if I have a polygon like this, it would have to like break down to
like a two-dimensional Riemann sum of but in squares.
That sounds right. I don't know what that means, but yeah, like basically like, and it would have a certain amount of precision, because of course you could create very small squares. Yeah. And that would get, if you like, but you'd have to say, this is a maximum size of a square or something. But anyway, it was all very exciting to think about, because those are the kind of fun problems to solve. And I was like, I have no time to do this right now. So I shelved it, but yeah.
That's the defining characteristic of people like us, right? We're just like, how can I program this, right?
Exactly.
There's a way to do it. There's always a way to do it, right?
Exactly.
And if the city didn't have the open data stuff, you would write a program that analyzes the image on Google Maps.
I was thinking that, yeah.
The squares of the buildings.
Which, funny enough, like I was doing some reading and someone had done something like that. I can't remember exactly. There was some blog post of someone saying they'd done something like that, but it just felt a little bit like, well, actually, I mean, I didn't need an exact number too, so that was a nice thing. I was like, even if this missed a house or two, that's fine. Like, I don't need the exact number of houses.
Well, of course,
just need to know like within the nearest 10 of houses, But yeah, so that was my invention.
Of course, that's always forgetting that there's probably a low-tech solution that's much easier somewhere. Like,
yeah,
just ask old Joe. He used to do the paper route for the last 50 years. Like, okay,
he knows all the houses. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
He knows this street has 20, and he can tell you. Yeah, totally. But not for us engineers. No, we have to find the more complex one. That's for sure. That's so funny. So I found, okay, so this ICS file.
Really so ICS is just a specific format of file, and it supports events and dates and other details.
So, it looks a lot like vCard, I think is what it's called. So it says begin vCalendar at the top. When I was a missionary, I wrote a program that like took contact data. It converted data from our mission system, our internet mission system for the missionaries, and converted it to a vCard format to be uploaded to the phone. So the mission president always had up-to-date contacts on his phone.
Oh, okay.
So now that I'm looking at this file, this is the exact same kind of format. It's a straight like line by line. It says like begin, and then it gives a name, and then it does all the data. Then it says end with the same token to signify the end of that.
I just love how both
object.
of us served in the office of our missions.
Yeah,
and we did programming for our mission presidents.
Yeah. You know, I couldn't help it.
Oh yeah, like I'm sitting in front of a computer all day. I might as well do something that saves my sanity for the programming stuff, and hopefully makes the job easier for the next person.
Oh, my poor companion, who was not at all like a computer person, and just put up with my. It was so fun. So I would take our like mission laptop home at night. It's just like, I would write in my journal. So I started a digital journal. I was in the office. I just wrote on it there in like a Word document. And B, I would like hack on code and stuff that I was working on for the mission office.
Oh dang, you guys had laptops. Man,
yeah,
we didn't have IMOS. It was just the original MOS system, and we didn't have laptops. We just had the computers, so couldn't do any of that. And even if we did, I doubt our mission president would have allowed us to bring them.
That was. I mean, the fact that it was a laptop made it easy, so I don't think anyone really minded. And it almost made it like so we could be on the go, and the mission president could be like, "Hey, can you check on this or print this or do this?" And it would be like, "Yeah, sure." We're like, "We got the laptop, we can do it." But yeah, that was funny.
And now we have jobs that let us work from home. Like this is basically it's a dream come true, right?
Oh my gosh, right? Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So this file looks like pretty easy to read. It just has like a bunch of events. Looks like all the events for the year.
Probably even better is there are probably libraries in JavaScript or any other language you want that can read through it.
Yeah.
So just check npm ICS. You said.
Yeah.
We better wrap this up pretty soon.
Yeah, we should. We should call it soon. Yeah.
There's a library called ICS, iCal file generator. I hope it can read it. ICS plus file. I don't want to. They're all talking about generate. Oh, Node iCal minimal iCalendar ICS parser for Node.js. There you go.
Nice. That sounds right. Yeah.
Scapegoat fetches calendar event objects from a CalDAV server.
Okay.
Calendario, I guess. Check if a day is a workday or holiday. Okay, that's not even related. iCal expander. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch.
Nice.
ICS to JSON. That might be
helpful. Yeah.
Depending on if you want to give it to an API or something. But yeah, I mean, tell me how this goes, this little project, and
I will. Yeah, I'm gonna hack on it a little bit, maybe tonight, and then I'll let you know. I want to get something that's like, so I can come back to the Eldercorn president and just say, okay, here's what it does right now. This is V1, because I'm the kind of person that'll like sit down, hack on it for weeks, make no contact, and be like, okay, I've completed my masterpiece, and then it's still full of bugs and broken. It's just like not a great process.
That's me all the time. And that's actually one of the dangers of working from home I just tell the guys at work, I'm doing well, just keeping at it. See you in a few weeks or see you in a few days. And then this happens. So anyways,
was there
anything else you wanted to mention tonight? I have a whole list of stuff that we can talk about, but we're pretty much out of time.
Yeah, let's talk next time, and I'll kind of give you the floor because I'd love to chat about stuff. My wife's pregnant with our third, which is exciting. That's the only news I have outside of
big news of the.
We're excited for that. Yeah, but no, I know. I always feel like there's more I want to talk about, but it's probably good because I think we could talk for 3 or 4 hours easily. Easily.
Oh, are you going to do a fun gender reveal party like you did before?
I think we're not. I think we decided that we don't want to find out this time, so we're just going to leave it a surprise.
Surprise.
Yeah. Nice. We found out with the first 2, and that was really fun. We'll just,
Yeah.
make it different this time and be surprised by it. So yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm the kind of person who always wants to know. So for our next, I'm not sure we will do that, but
Yeah.
maybe my wife will, and I won't. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. Yeah, I know. I was kind of always like that too. Like, oh, I just wanted to know if we can know, let's know. But Naomi was of the mind that, well, it'd be kind of fun, and I've kind of turned over to that side now, and I think we'll just, yeah, we have like clothes for both genders and everything.
Yeah,
It's like
that's the one thing that Jasmine insisted on is even if we do find out, we're not going to tell anyone because we don't want like a ton of pink frilly sleepers or like these ridiculous masculine stuff. We just want, as gender neutral as possible, and that way we can save it for our next kid and
exactly
how it works.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
So we don't ruin the kid's life forever.
Yeah.
By predetermining everything. But anyways.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching. And thanks, Brandon, for hanging out with me today. I'm going to stop the broadcast. So
we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.